what it means to be unethical. So many times we think strictly that it's about stealing from someone, falsifying a claim, etc. But when you act in a way that undermines the relationship of trust, you're being unethical. Now, I'm a co-leader with Maurice and others of a company which is going through its own challenges. And I was speaking to one of my senior vice presidents about this and saying to her, God is with us even in this circumstance. I said, are you sure that God is still with us? I said, very much so. He's right on top of it, very much so. And I said, why? These challenges bring us back to the first principles, the points that both Maurice and Dion have dealt with. They bring us back from the sense of arrogance. We know it all. We're big. We've reached frontiers. We're in 33 countries. And they humble us. And you can't lead properly if you lack humility. You just can't. And that is why that great leader, my great leader, Jesus the Christ, when you are speaking to what Maurice has referred to as his band of 12, and they're all jostling around who will be at their most prime position. He makes the point that they're the others who are lording it over others. Your job is not to lord it over others, but is to be of service to others. And for you to be of effective service, you've got to be also able to humble yourself and know that you don't know it all. And I was saying this point to one of the young men who are leaders at Sasol and whom I mentor, and say, all of us have to be humbled to allow other voices too to be heard. Because when people don't speak up, the dominant voice is not always the right voice. And many people make that mistake. And I was saying to him, as part of your own growth, trust your own self too. Trust what is placed in you. And when something is even telling your gut that it's not feeling right, trust it. Ask. Put up the questions. There's no such a thing as a stupid question. The most puzzling thing you normally find around these points we call stupid questions, or what we perceive to be stupid questions, and therefore elect not to ask, is that at the end you then see things unveil themselves in a particular way, and you said, there was something that had long told you that was not the path to go. I doubted myself. I belittled myself. I thought those other guys who were making more noise are the ones who know more. And only to find at times there is truth in the old saying, empty vessels make the most noise. There you are quiet, heavily burdened, with lots of load to unpack. And had you just asked that question, you might find that it was not just only yourself who needed an answer to it, there were others too. So it is in that spirit that we ourselves come here. We come to serve. We are open to all voices. Fundamental, we want everyone to speak up. So as we're reflecting on what to say today, you see, what Lord Acton expressed to Bishop Mandel Creighton in 1887. Power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Great men are always bad men. We see it. We see it. And sometimes, as Johnny said, it's not so much about, you can get away with it from a criminal prosecution or whatever. But it doesn't mean that you've been right. So, having regard to these sage words, we launch into our second ULP governance session, which we kick off with a focus on power and ethics. And it is important that we always have this linkage. You know? I mean, Maurice and his and the man that we've had to look at, he stands on integrity. He or she, rather, stands on integrity. Absent that, no matter how much knowledge you may have, you're as good as having no knowledge. Because in any event, as the philosopher Hume said, knowledge is justified through belief. And you can't have something that is true when it is in fact stacked up with all of the other things around ethics and all that are not at the right place. So, the focus around power and ethics, and with particular regard to the fiduciary duties of directors. Now, it's important again just that we recap part of that portion. We had it in the session we had the last time. And you'll see it more again when in the sessions that are to follow from mine, in the portions to follow from mine, that there are essentially two categories of directors' duties, namely the fiduciary duties and the duty of care, skill, and diligence. I'm just going to focus on the fiduciary duties. There'll be another focus around the duty of care, skill, and diligence. And as you'll see there on the fiduciary duties, we've just listed them. We've listed them as we picked up more so from the Companies Act. The Companies Act in some way codifying some of the common law principles that have always been there. First one, act honestly and in good faith. The second one, act in the best interest of the company. Thirdly, avoid conflicts. Fourthly, don't usurp corporate opportunities. People like saying, what is in it for me? That's followed by don't breach the no profit rule as a director. Also, don't breach the proper purpose rule. Exercise independent judgment. And finally, act always within the powers, within the authority that given. Acting honestly and in good faith, it's so important that we are always alive at every time. Act honestly and in good faith. A lot of what goes wrong is that the smart people that we so look up to don't always act honestly don't always bring to bear their bona fides. They're not out there to be authentic. They are not the authentic leaders that Maurice has referred to. And Justice Berger, in the Canadian case of Tech Corporation Limited versus Miller, stated this in relation to this point. The directors must act in good faith, then there must be reasonable grounds for their belief. Can't simply say, I just believed it. If they say that they believe there will be substantial damage to the company's interests, then there must be reasonable grounds for that belief. If they are not, that will justify a finding that the directors were actuated by an improper purpose. Every time. I mean, I love, there's what you can Google for yourself, the four-way test. I think it's of the Rotary International Club. So you look at things around, including is it fair to others? Is it the right thing? You always have to be in the space where you're focused on good faith. It doesn't matter that others might not see you. Others might not know what is behind the action you're taking. Ultimately, it might be exposed. But fundamentally, every time, honesty must come first, together with the importance of good faith. The next one who said is act in the best interest of the company. It is critical that directors always serve the best interest of the company and not their own convenience. The best interest of the company. It's amazing how you find people struggle with that. I came across before a director, and this director was of seniority, had particular leadership positions, was in another city, and found something strange around how this director would do things. When you come in as a director for meetings with us and all that, we've got to arrange your accommodation, provide you with a car and all that. And we found that when this director had other things to attend to in Johannesburg, and I could see some of those because I ended up in others because I'm involved in them. But there would be a cottage factory of work created by this director, which would include meetings set up. And if the engagements the directors come for in Johannesburg are taking over about 2 or 3 days, those will be broken down into each of these days. And there will be the time. So we'll have people coming through us for this and the other. But it is those little things that you may think people are not observing, but they do. Just because they don't say them doesn't mean they don't observe them.